Hey everyone, welcome back to Clara's Chronicles, where today is boring, so let's get exploring. It is now my favorite month of the year, Spooktober, and I wanted to share some of my favorite spooky, scary, creepy articles that I've been able to find, and trust me, I have found some crazy ones. I'm going to start with this really cool article, and it is titled, Now the Devil's Throat Will Starve. And this article is from the Detroit Evening Times, January 30th, 1944. And it is creepy. So let me go ahead and make my thumbnail smaller, and we will go ahead and begin. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. Oops. Just a sec. It says, Mexico's dreadful pit of horror that has swallowed so many crime victims, suicides, and others is at last sealed against more human feasts. By William Seabrook. They've dropped him down the devil's throat. They've fed him to the devil, has been a whispered synonym for hideous and mysterious murder in and near Mexico City much longer than anybody can remember. It sounds like a figure of speech, but ever since the days of the conquistadors, it has had a horrible and literal reality. For the devil's throat was a 20-foot wide hole in the ground near Taxco, a few hours' drive from the Mexican capital, dropping to a bottomless pit of death which had swallowed countless victims. How many skeletons of murdered men and women were moldering down below? How many recent corpses? How deep? And I can't read that word. No man could say. I can't read the next word. The devil's throat has gulped its last dread feast. As the result of a recent double murder, only a few weeks old, the mayor of Taxco, a citizens committee, and officials of the American Smelting Company, which has 12 mines in the vicinity, sent workmen to seal the pit of horror. When they'd finished the job, a mound of logs, concrete, and boulders sealed the dreaded lips forever. Within recent years, screams had been heard more than once a night, dude. This is a crazy story. I don't even know how I fell upon this article, but I was like, what in the world is this? Oh, and by the way, my video looks weird because I adjusted the colors to make it look spooky. So let me go back, sorry. Had been heard more than once at night from that evil, haunted spot. An unfaithful bride and her lover had been taken for a ride, there never to return. A dance hall girl had similarly disappeared. Rival politicians, warring gangsters had dropped their victims down the hole in broad daylight. Some of the murderers had paid the penalty, but the pit of horror still gaped wide, as it had for centuries. It had gaped indeed for the same horrid human food ever since ancient Aztec times. An archaeologist once lowered part way found 2 Aztec daggers embedded in a jutting rock on the sidewall. He was convinced that they were evidence of prehistoric murders or possible human sacrifice, but reported that the hole widened and opened into what seemed a vast bottomless cave in the bowels of the earth. Impossible to explore further. What finally aroused the officials in the recent double murder was that one of the victims was a policeman. As nearly as the crime could be reconstructed, 2 Mexicans had been hired to arrange the disappearance of a Taxco citizen, had taken him to the entrance of the, let me make sure this shows, the entrance of the Devil's Throat and were about to push him in when the policeman appeared and was thrown in too, alive or dead in the ensuing struggle. The murderers insisted the policeman had fallen in by accident during the brawl, and an attempt to rescue the two bodies was considered. But it was abandoned on the advice of Exquidal. Sorry, it's so light I can't read this. Ordonez, Mexico City's leading geologist. The hole had been probed 380 feet down, where it widened, leading to unknown depths, unfathomable and probably filled with noxious, stagnant gases. This is nightmare fuel right here. That is scary. And let me just show you guys. They have a few images here. Let me see if I could zoom out. This image here is really dark. But as you can see, the archaeologist has been dropped down and he's like looking for artifacts. It says the archaeologist retrieved Aztec ritual daggers, which indicated the pit had once been used for human sacrifice. And to the right, an artist's diagram showing how 380 feet down, the hole widens to unfathomable depths. So that is scary. And I think let me show this picture as well. Let me move my thumb now. It says Mexican authorities trying to recover the last victim of the Devil's Throat were unsuccessful, for no human morsel ever has escaped it. Okay, so this is a really scary story. It's not a story, it's actually real, sorry, but it's a really scary thing to think about. So let's see where we were. The impossibility of producing, let me make sure I'm not covering it. I hate when I do that. The impossibility of producing the corpus delicti in this or any other case in which the victim had gone down the Devil's Throat influenced the authorities to close at last this too convenient and too silent graveyard of murder mystery. For the same identical difficulty had confronted the authorities, not only of Taxco, but of Mexico City itself, in more than one sinister, mysterious disappearance. People still remembered with shudders the unsolved case of the beautiful Carmela Cienfuega, the bride who changed her mind on her wedding day and has never been seen or heard of since, unless the scream that night from the Devil's Throat was hers. Carmela was betrothed to a proud, reputedly dissolute man 3 times her age, but wealthy. The banns had been published the day set. The cathedral was already alight for the great church wedding. But the bride, to be had eloped at the last moment with a poor, almost unknown young actor. They went by bus toward Acapulco, on the highway which passes near the Devil's Throat, and behind them on the road, or so it was later said, were 2 closed cars belonging to the aged, powerful, humiliated bridegroom. The bus driver and other passengers reported after the disappearance that Carmela and Rodriguez Montero had descended at Taxco and had asked the way to a priest's house. They never arrived at the priest's house. They were never seen again on earth. The peasants passing near the Devil's Throat that night say they heard shrill screams, but screams heard by peasants, or imagined, from a spot already held in superstitious terror, are not sufficient evidence for a court of law. It was the same in the case of a Mexico City dance hall girl named Teresa Muendoz. Her disappearance caused less of a furor, but there was still less evidence to go on. There had been some bitter jealousy about her, some flashing of knives, a couple of fights. When she disappeared, the unprovable whisper in the underworld was that the devil's nostril Another name for the hideous death hole had sniffed her out. The most ghastly thing about these and many other suspected cases was that without the evidence of actual eyewitnesses, nothing could be proved. More definite is the knowledge that in the past political turmoils, the Devil's Throat was used by at least one powerful family as a dumping ground for bodies of its victims. The old Hidalgo used to have the bodies taken there by truckloads. And on one occasion, when he decided there was a man among the chauffeurs he couldn't trust, he knocked the suspected traitor on the head and had him tossed into the hole also. What with those bloody transactions in mass, plus individual victims, the Taxco authorities believe the mortal remains of more than 100 persons lie at the bottom of this now sealed pit of horror. Press and public in Mexico are loud in their acclaim of the present mayor and his associates who put an end to the abomination, while peasants say, now the Devil's Throat will starve. But as they pass the evil spot, they still cross themselves and shudder. This is a super spooky article that I found. And as part of Spooktober, I wanted to share them. It is nightmare fuel. I absolutely hate the idea of there being a bottomless pit full of corpses. And it might just ruin our sleep tonight. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If it scared you, if it gave you a little terror, I'm trying to make sure these articles are way out there, super different than any kind of story we've heard the last few Halloweens. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to join in, I have so many crazy articles that I want to share. So subscribe if you'd like to see more. Let me pull up the other article I'll be sharing because it's even more creepy. Where did it go? It was page 71 of this article. Oh, here it is. And this one says, weird black magic below the Rio Grande. And this will be shared on my next video. So keep an eye out, and I can't wait to see you guys the next time. And I hope you're enjoying Spooktober as much as I am. Have a good night.